Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paripajikacharya Ashto Tadasatsashi Srimad AC Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kunagata Kunigiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Tham Ki Jai Navadip Tham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Gangamai Ki Jai Jamunamai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Maharaj, and thank you everyone for being here tonight for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayādvaita Swami. We're reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd Canto, 7th chapter, starting tonight with, if I may say, one of my favorite verses, verse number 17, according to our notes here. And like to know if someone would like to lead tonight's closing kirtan, send me a direct message. We'd love to hear from you, as well as hear from you in the chat box as regards your comments and questions on tonight's material. And we're so happy you could be with us tonight, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much to Kendra Prabhu. And thank you to Haridas Prabhu and to all. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yascha Mudhatamo Loke Yascha Buddhe Param Gataha Tavubhau Sukamedhete Vishyatyantarito Janaha. Both the lowest of fools and he who is transcendental to all intelligence enjoy happiness, whereas persons between them suffer the material pangs. Purport. The lowest of fools do not understand material miseries. They pass their lives merrily and do not inquire into the miseries of life. Such persons are almost on the level of the animals, who, although in the eyes of superiors are always miserable in life, are unaware of material distresses. A hog's life is degraded in its standard of happiness, which entails living in a filthy place, engaging in sex enjoyment at every opportune moment, and laboring hard in a struggle for existence. But this is unknown to the hog. Similarly, human beings who are unaware of the miseries of material existence and are happy in sex life and hard labor are the lowest of fools. Yet because they have no sense of miseries, they supposedly enjoy so-called happiness. The other class of men, those who are liberated and are situated in the transcendental position above intelligence, are really happy and are called Paramhansas. But persons who are neither like hogs and dogs, nor on the level of the Paramhansas, feel the material pangs. And for them, inquiry about the supreme truth is necessary. The Vedanta Sutra states, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now one should inquire about Brahma. This inquiry is necessary for those who are between the Paramhansas and the fools who have forgotten the question of self-realization in the midst of life and sense gratification. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakota Mayham Tadhati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamanan Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saharana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivan Sadvaitam Savatutam Pradijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saharana Lodita Sri Vishakam Vedanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Puri Priye Mansha Gopika Kripa Sindho Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yascha Mudhatamo Loke Yascha Buddhe Paramdataha Tavubhav Sukham Edhe Te Krishat Yantarito Janaha. The observation by Vidura is just to the point. Mudhatama means the lowest of fools. And Yascha Buddhe Paramgata are the Paramhansas. So both of them are happy. The Paramhansas are happy because they're swimming in the ocean of transcendental bliss. And the fools are happy because they're fools. Tam tavubo sukhamedetim. But klishyati antaritojana, those persons who are between them, who aren't fools and aren't paramhansas, klishyati, they're suffering. They feel the suffering. The fools hardly feel it because they're so foolish. And the Paramhansas are beyond it. But the fools and the Paramhansas between them are the rest of us who are suffering, who know that we're suffering, and who have to inquire, why am I suffering? What to do? Would you like to add something, Kendra, Prabhu, since this is a favorite verse of yours?
Oh my gosh, I'm honored that you would even think of such a thing. But there's a portion here where he's saying how the animals are unaware of material distresses. And for me to read that is, I feel it's bracing information that we're being told something about the life of animals that we wouldn't otherwise know, because how could we know? And but the natural question may arise that, well, how do we know this, that they're unaware of material distresses? Is it simply because we don't see evidence of their distress, or are we expected to simply accept it in the form of Vedic injunction that this is the way it is and this is the only way you're going to know this, so you should just accept it?
We can see it from the human beings who are like animals. A few beers and find a broad to shack up with, and I'm happy, man. They're dull. They're dull. They have supposedly human intelligence, but you give them a woman and you give them some food to chomp on, you give them some beer to gulp down, and hey, life's good. We see that even on the Bowery in Srila Prabhupada's time. The Bowery was not what it is today, a sort of a gentrified, upscale destination, but it was the place of drunkards and people who were down and out. And we used to see them. Sometimes in the winter, they'd light a fire in a garbage can, and they'd be a little bit huddled around the fire, and their faces would be frowsy, and sometimes their arms would be in a sling because they would have fallen someplace and gotten patched up at the local hospital, and their faces would be scratched and from falls, and they're singing. They're huddled around the garbage can and singing because they're so drunk that they don't know how miserable they are, or what a miserable situation they're in. So we can understand the position of the animals by studying the people who are on the borderline, who are close to animal life. And Haridas says, the Bowery was seen nationally as the lowest, most unfortunate place in the country in the 1960s. Yeah, the Bowery was like a symbol of being down and out. More, Kendra Prabhu?
Well, actually, I was thinking about this last sentence. The inquiry is necessary for those who have forgotten the question of self-realization in the midst of life of sense gratification. It relates back to the condition of the animals. And sometimes you can see that animals are happy, or they're unhappy. If you have pets or if you spend time around cows. And at the same time, it seems the main difference, just from an objective kind of point of view, is that while there may be some happiness, there may be some distress, it's a totally different experience than a human being that falls within the parameters he's mentioning here would have, that not only do you feel the distress, but you think, why is this happening to me? This shouldn't be happening to me. There's something wrong here. It's like an existential pain on top of the sensual pain or whatever kind of pain. So that seems to be the extra uncomfortable position of a human being who's who's neither like the hogs and dogs nor on the level of Paramahamsas, then for them, that's why the inquiry is, why am I here? I like very much one of Prabhupada's statements in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, that an ordinary man who is frustrated in his expectations thinks, why am I here?
As long as things seem a little rosy, we don't ask. So it's to our advantage to be stuck in this way, to be pricked by the pangs of material existence. And then those who are our enemies try to say, well, you just need this, you just need that. Try our therapy, try, relating to others differently, try this, try that, and everything will be fine. And they're the enemies of human society. Stifle inquiry about ultimate questions and just patch it. But a sage like Maitreya or a inquirer like Vidura will feel this, that between misery and bliss is this no man's land of struggle and suffering. And those who are in that position should wake up and inquire. Tato Brahmajikasa. Vijay Krishna says, or more, Ekendra Prabhu, before we. As soon as I begin to inquire about Brahma, what is it that changes in my life? Is it that I will stop feeling the material pangs? What changes is that now you're seeking. And as the Bible says, seek and you shall find. If one is blind to self-realization or the importance of self-realization, he'll never get self-realization. Minus some mercy from somewhere. But if one seeks spiritual realization, then he's begun his spiritual life. And he can reach that point of Paramahamsa, always absorbed in thinking of Krishna. Tina says, but ultimately everything is an internal experience. So if the drunkards are happy, even if we know they're suffering, does it matter? Srila Prabhupada was asked this question at the last Bombay Pandal festival, the last Pandal, last public program really that he did, I think. He, well, that's a whole story in itself. Srila Prabhupada was so ill that he had to be carried onto the stage, and he began by hardly speaking. He just had one of his assistants reading from Bhagavatam. But gradually Prabhupada began commenting a little, then commenting a little more. And by the end, he was roaring. And then he called for questions. And one of the questions was posed by a sophisticated Bombay resident who says, in essence, so what if we become a dog? We'll have the consciousness of a dog and we'll be happy. So then it's all right. So everyone was waiting to see how Srila Prabhupada would respond. And Srila Prabhupada said, well, if there's nothing wrong with it, as the man had said, if there's nothing wrong, then it's all right. But we do not think such life is very nice. So the dog, he thinks, yes, this is happiness. Or the Buddhatama, the fool, thinks, I've got my beer, I've got a fire. They patched up my arm. Let me sing. So the fools, the animals, that's their level of consciousness. But a person who's awake, a person who has higher consciousness can see how this person is so, like a madman. Madman thinks he's perfectly sane, but a sane person sees he's a madman. More, Tina? I see your hand is there.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranams. Yes. What I also was getting at is that it's really a matter of perspective. And what comes to mind, for example, is, in the third canto, it said like, oh, childbirth, it's such a, horrible, like uncomfortable experience for the baby. It's in the womb and it's all shriveled up. And it talks about just this, like so much suffering. But then in the 10th canto, it's talking about how childbirth is this glorious, beautiful experience in the Vedic culture. And it's really just how you see it.
A
And another
glorious
thing,
experience being in the womb.
well, in the sense of childbirth. So for example, in the 10th canto, it's talking about the, it got into how Vedic culture, how it's, with all the samskaras and, nowadays people,
Well,
procreate.
the two are not mutually contradictory. It's miserable. It's, like they have you get out of prison and your friends and relatives are there and they greet you and they wave banners or something. So we're so glad that you're back amongst us again. But that doesn't mean that you weren't suffering like a dog in the prison.
Thank you. I guess another example that comes to mind is, for example, it's said that being in a woman's body, it's a body of suffering. And you can take the perspective like, yes, oh my gosh, like childbirth is, painful. The monthly, cycle is painful. Even from today's society, like the women's like society standards of being thin or hair and makeup, all of that. So that's one perspective to see it. And you can take it as a woman like, wow, there's so much suffering. Or there's another perspective where there's like, wow, this is so much fun. Like, sure, I have to, spend some money on like makeup and hair, but it's fun. I enjoy it. Like, it's a matter of perspective. And that same person going
totally
through.
Perspective. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So this goes to the, at the end of the day, it's really just one's experience. One could take it as, oh, I'm suffering, it's horrible, or like, this is so much fun and this is great. And, and so while I guess I'm sorry, I'm jumbling around, but it's also, we're coming from the perspective of, yes, we have more knowledge, but if the person doesn't, it's still their own experience. Just like when you go to India and people are making like $1 a day, but they're so happy. They have zero idea the opulence of living in the West. They just have no conception. Just like we have zero conception of what it's like to live as a celebrity, but we're happy in our, homes and living the way we are. But then the celebrities are going, wow, you have no idea what it's like. There's so much more. But at the end of the day, while they know more, does it matter because we're happy? And so while we may know the dog and the pig, all of that, there's more intelligence, but their experience, they're happy. So at the end of the day, it's their own experience. So, I'm saying it doesn't matter, but they're happy.
Yes. The happiness is entirely subjective. If I feel that I'm happy, then I'm happy. That's quite right. By the way, men suffer also. It's not that being in a woman's body means you suffer and being in a man's body means you don't. But in any case, this is relative and this is subjective. That's the perspective of the verse. Why is the Paramahansa happy? Because he feels happy. And why is the lowest of fools happy? Because he feels happy. So it's admitted. The fools are happy. And the Paramahansas are happy. We don't deny it. But what kind of happiness are the Paramahansas getting? they're getting the happiness with Brahmasokyam Tvananta, eternal, limitless happiness. And the fools are getting a kind of false happiness, a happiness that lasts for the space of a breath. Prabhupada gives the example that there's a kind of punishment where you're pulled out into the middle of a pond and dunked under. In New England in the colonial days, they had these dunking stools, and that was the punishment. You were pushed underwater, and when you were practically out of breath, then they would drag you up, and then they would thrust you down again. So you get that one moment of air. That's happiness. And you experience it as happiness. Yes, I'm happy I got my breath, but what is that happiness? So you're quite right, it's from a different perspective. The Paramahansa, from his own perspective, feels happy, and the fool, from his perspective, feels happy. And the person in between feels troubled by miseries. So this is the understanding of an enlightened person like Vidura. He sees this whole picture. The Paramahansa also sees this whole picture. The fool doesn't see it. He's got his little whatever it is, and he thinks this is happiness. And he doesn't see the larger context of how he's going through birth and death, birth and death, birth and death. He doesn't pick up on the extent of the miseries that he's undergoing, or the possibility that he could get free from those miseries. He just enjoys what little scrap of happiness he can. And he thinks, yes, I got this. So you're entirely right. It's a matter of perspective. For the fool, whatever little rubbish he gets, that's happiness. And for the Paramahansa, the eternal bliss is happiness. And for the person in the middle, there's a different experience. That I get a little happiness, but what is it? I have so many troubles. So my experience is mixed. So you're entirely right. It's presenting the subjective viewpoints of three different kinds of people. The person who's happy with transcendental happiness, the person who's happy with foolishness in the mode of ignorance, and the person in between who feels something's wrong.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Praveen says, how can you say that the dog is suffering? The dog may be very much enjoying his life. You cannot perceive for the dog. But you, Hare Krishnas, always have a pessimistic, half-empty glass view of everything instead of seeing the half-filled glass. Yeah, same answer. We accept that the dog feels happy. And if you're happy with the same kind of happiness that a dog gets, then good for you. But as Srila Prabhupada said, we don't think that kind of life is very nice. If you think that just enjoying a little sense gratification while suffering like a dog is all there is to life, we may not have much to say to you. If you're happy, go on being happy. What can be done? But we'll move on to the person in the middle. This is the basis for preaching activities. The person who's convinced that material suffering doesn't exist will be a hard sell. But the person who already intuits that something is wrong, I'm not satisfied, that person can be a candidate for higher understanding. Saraswati.
Pranam Parampuja Maharaj. The past few verses, it's become really clear that whatever material miseries, distress, or happiness, this is all illusory. It has no substance because it's not based on reality. But still, it's clear that people in the middle, low or high, they're feeling, well, not the high, but the people in the middle are aware of material distresses, and they may make so many plans to try and gain relief. But all those plans fail. But despite these material distresses being classified as illusory and hallucinogenic, the fact is there are devotees who, when they feel distress, I'll give you 3 examples: Gajendra, Draupadi, and even Ajamil, when they've called out to Krishna, even if these material distresses are not real, they have no substance, not based on reality, still they've experienced these distresses and they've called out to Krishna. They've got the results too. With Draupadi, she was rescued, and so was Gajendra. Of course, sometimes we think, oh, well, rescue should come in this form or this manner. I know I had a very heated debate with my mother after watching the Mahabharata. My father was screaming, oh, the elder wise men, they should have left the assembly straight away. And I was thinking, oh, you turn the clock back. Krishna should turn the clock back, erase what has happened. That's the only way that everyone can move forward with this. And then I was telling my mother, oh, Draupadi was rescued because she tore a strip of her sari when Krishna nicked his finger when the Sudarshan Chakra came back after cutting off Shishupal's head in the Rajasuya Yagya. And my mother said, do you think if she hadn't given that strip of cloth, Krishna wouldn't have rescued her? There's a lot going on. But the fact is, even if all these distresses are illusory, the fact is just when what's real is that devotees, when they do experience this, they do call out to Krishna for help, because they understand that they can't fix anything, they can't see through their way out of this distress, and that they are really completely helpless. That the only person that can help them is Krishna. So although the distress is not based on reality, the help is based on reality. Thank you, Maharaj.
And it's not just that the help is based on reality, because if Krishna did nothing more than patch the situation, that wouldn't be such a great gift. If Gajendra just got the crocodile off his leg so that he could go back into the water happily with his family members, that wouldn't be a great benediction. But the real benediction is that their eternal relationship with Krishna was revived or enhanced. That's the real benediction. One comes to Krishna, one begins to serve Krishna for 4 different reasons. One is for relief from distress. So the benediction is not to get relief. The benediction is to come closer to Krishna. That story is there about some woman who was carrying a big bundle of sticks on her head, and the bundle fell, and she called out to God, and then God appeared before her. What do you want? No, please put these sticks back on my head for me. So that's not a great blessing. The real blessing is to become Krishna conscious. Thank you for those examples.
Maharaj, so there's a purpose to the material distresses of devotees. There's a plan, there's a purpose. We've been corralled into this point where we are able to surrender completely to Krishna and, as you say, revive and regain our position of servitude. There's a purpose behind the material distresses that devotees get. Thank you, Maharaj, for your answer.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you for the question. Vijay Krishna. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I'm covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and inexhaustible. If Krishna is happy and the foolish and unintelligent are happy, as your spiritual master establishes in his purport, why is it that Krishna is never manifest to them? I thought that birds of the same feather flock together. Krishna is not of the same feather as these birds. That's the first thing. Screen. Okay. Krishna is not of the same feather as these birds. It's not that Krishna is happy and the fools are happy, and therefore Krishna is on the same level as the fools. But why why is Krishna not manifest to them? Because they don't want him to be manifest to them. Why is the sun not manifest to the person who's shut himself up indoors? Kabir says, a mental person may think himself sane from his perspective, but the society will not accept him. He will be in the mental hospital in any case. Yeah, subjectively, he may feel himself sane, but those who are better established will see this man is mad. Haridas quotes purport to 13:8-12, Bhagavad Gita. No one wants to be diseased, and no one wants to become old. But there's no avoiding these unless we have a pessimistic view of this material life, considering the distresses of birth, death, old age, and disease. There's no impetus for our making advancement in spiritual life. Yes. Kendra.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. I was trying to find this as a visual example to show. I couldn't find it. There's an old New Yorker cartoon where there's a very stern, matronly Salvation Army worker standing over a drunk in the gutter. And the drunk in the gutter is just, you can see the little cartoon bubbles and his eyes are just cross-marked, but he's got this dopey, big truth grin like he's in the bliss of drunkenness, and he can't even imagine that there's a stern, matronly Salvation Army worker standing over him. And the caption is, she's saying, "Oh, unhappy man." So I thought that graphically would have shown exactly what this verse is talking about, but I couldn't find the graphic, sorry.
There's, you reminded me of another one. Let's see if I can, I remember I was having problems showing things on my screen, so I won't. There's, but it's someone has walked into the hotel room of this couple who are in bed and covered up with, to the collarbones, some sheets. And the caption says, "It's not what you think it is. The sex is lousy and we're miserable." All right. Let's see where we are here. It's also one of my favorite verses, by the way, the lowest of fools and the Paramhansas who are beyond all intelligence. Intelligence is still one of the material elements. One has to transcend even material intelligence to come to the transcendental platform. And those who do so, they're on the highest platform of happiness. And those in the middle suffering. Yeah, let's read one more verse. Arta bhavam vinishchitya pratitasyapi natmanaha tam chapi yushmach charana sevayaham paranude. But, my dear sir, I'm obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I'm confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea. Purport: the sufferings of the conditioned soul are superficial and have no intrinsic value, like the cutting off of one's head in a dream. Yet, although this statement is theoretically very true, it's very difficult for the common man or the neophyte on the transcendental path to realize practically. However, by serving the feet of great transcendentalists like Maitreya Muni, and by constantly associating with them, one is enabled to give up the false idea that the soul suffers from material pangs. That this is conclusive. The Maitreya has given conclusive understanding of the nature of material suffering. It's superficial. It's not really there. It's like the suffering in a dream. So we can hear that, and as Prabhupada said, theoretically, yes, we may acknowledge it, but it sure feels real. As much as we hear that this suffering is just like the suffering in a dream, it feels substantial, it feels undeniable, it feels real. So what one might argue then, what is the use of this theoretical construct when we still feel this misery, and therefore we do suffer? Just as we're hearing, I am happy, so I am suffering. Why am I suffering? Because even though I've heard that this is illusory, I experience it as being anything but. But sevaya, by service to the lotus feet of a advanced transcendentalist like Maitreya Muni, this one can experience this understanding as a fact. That's called Vigyan. There's theoretical understanding, and then there's assimilated understanding, an understanding that we realize as true, that we experience as true. So that theoretical understanding of the illusory nature of material existence and material suffering, as well as material happiness, becomes established in one's heart when one serves an advanced transcendental superior devotee. But that's the essence of this verse. Arta abhavam, without meaning. Arta means meaning. Arta abhavam vinishchitya. Definitely, it's vinishchitya. It's not only certain, it's completely certain. We know it for sure. Prati yasya api na atmanaha It has nothing to do with the soul. And we can understand it. Paranude. We can give up this false understanding. Sevaya, by service. Yusmachcharana sevaya. Therefore, tad vigyan artam sadhumeva vidashtra. Kendra Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. I had a comment and then a question. The comment is that in the verse and the purport, the idea of the false idea comes up. I'm confident that by serving your feet, I can give up this false idea. And then Prabhupada says one isn't able to give up that false idea that the soul suffers. As I was reading that, I was thinking of that. I guess I think in terms of cartoons. There's another cartoon that's used by psychologists. Everyone's probably seen it. It's the duck / rabbit. That if you look at it one way, it's a duck, and you see their eye is there, and the long things are the bill. But if you look at it the other way, the long things are the ears, and then the mouth is in a different place. But it's impossible to see it as both a duck and a rabbit at the same time. It's either one or the other. So I was thinking about this false idea that you're supposed to be able to give up by service to transcendentalists. If you're committed to trying to enjoy the material world, that's a false idea. And if you see an object of sense gratification, you think there's some happiness. But you can't simultaneously see that as the path to my own destruction, death, and repeated birth. It's either one thing or the other. You can't enjoy it and see it as a cause of suffering. And then my question was, how does this actually work? That service to the feet of great transcendentalists enables us to give up this false idea, whether the duck side or the rabbit side. We tend to think of understanding or achievement in terms of my own achievement or my own learning or my own erudition or my own endeavor. So how does it actually work that simply by serving the feet of great devotees and pleasing them, that we become free from this false idea?
Nice point and nice question. As far as seeing things both ways, or not being able to see things both ways, therefore that advice is there in the Bhagavad Gita. Janma Mritu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Dosha Nidarshan. That we should see the glass is half empty. We should be pessimistic. We should be aware of the miseries of birth and death, old age and disease. We shouldn't be the lowest of fools. I've quoted from the commentary on Ecclesiastes before, that even when the wise are not in the house of mourning, the house of mourning is always with them. So this kind of philosophical thought is recommended for those who want to solve the problems of life. As for the question, how exactly does it work? How exactly does it work? I don't know exactly how it works. It's not mechanical. It's not merely by some sort of a system of pulleys and levers that this understanding becomes practical. But there's a force called blessings. There's a force called blessings, and it's acknowledged by those who are in Vedic culture, or you can almost say in any culture, advanced human culture. There's a power to blessings. And the more advanced the giver of blessings, and the more receptive the receiver, the more the effect is felt. Yes. Even materially, the blessings of parents, for example. Therefore, Duryodhana, before going into Kurukshetra, he sought the blessings of his mother to fight. She wouldn't give them. She wouldn't give them. Arjuna got the blessings of Bhishma Dev and Dronacharya before undertaking to oppose them in battle. So these blessings of superiors count. They have you can say, a mysterious effect. This perhaps falls into the larger area of mind over matter, of thought being able to influence the outcome of material events. We know from Princeton research that ordinary people were able to influence machines to act differently to a statistically significant extent. There's an experiment by Akandati Prabhu has pointed out in his Atma Paradigm, in which what was it, like some kind of food, I think. You keep it in the refrigerator, 2 samples, and one you speak to lovingly, and the other you just badmouth it like anything. You're the worst thing in the world. And after 6 months or a year, the food that you spoke to lovingly is still fresh, and the food that you badmouthed has become putrid. And how does exactly that work? It shouldn't work according to a mechanistic view of reality, but it does seem to be true. So so this is there, that we're not living just in a world of levers and pulleys of machines and the push and pull of atoms. There's a spiritual force which is behind everything. There's human life, or there's the life of the Atma, and that Atma has influence. The Atma can create a planet. The Atma can make the impossible possible. The Atma can bring things from any part of the universe. These are not done mechanically with the senses. It's done by thought. Of course, you could say this is the mind, but finally, it's what's energizing the mind is the soul. So the materialist may not acknowledge the influence of blessings or curses, but those who are more refined understand that there's a great value in the blessings of great souls, and that there's danger in the curse of great souls. So does it work mechanistically? No, but is it a fact? Yes, it is. There's quite a number of things still in the chat box with 2 minutes left to go, but let's see. Roy says, I think it's quite common for devotees in times of great difficulties to feel a peacefulness descend on them when they accept their helplessness. I've certainly had that feeling, even though it's temporary. Yes, when we depend on Krishna. Anantashesh says, meanwhile, motivational speakers make a living by inspiring people to look at life as a glass half full. Yeah, your glass is half full, and my bank account is filling up with your money. Praveen quotes Chanakya, he who desires sense gratification must give up all thoughts of acquiring knowledge, and he who seeks knowledge must not hope for sense gratification. How can he who seeks sense gratification acquire knowledge? And he who possesses knowledge enjoy mundane sense pleasure. Well, thank you all, and we'll end here. Tomorrow is, well, I think both on my side and your side is Radhastami. So we'll pray for the mercy of Srimati Radharani. I won't give an extra class tomorrow. I'm filled up with classes here on the Amritsar side. And so my apologies for but we'll just move forward. And I'll look forward to seeing you again on Monday. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Bhagavatam.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Mahesh.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Paripajikacharya Ashtotra Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Jayādvaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Gangamai Ki Jai, Jamunamai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Mahesh Pandit Prabhu.
Thank you.
Wonderful kirtan as always.
Thank you to everyone for being here, and especially thank you, Maharaj. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Jayādvaita Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.